They say November's the season of champions, so why not talk about it? Don't worry, the Extra Point is back, and it starts right now. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Extra Point. As always, I'm your host, Griffin Barfield. And again, we have a full panel. We have 5 usual suspects that are ready to show their views on what's going on in sports today. From left to right, we have Jordan York, Mara Kane, Kane Fox, Toby Corriston, and Brian Warner. Guys, again, welcome back. I think it was the first time we did not record on an usual Monday just because everything that was going on with college basketball, college football, everything under the sun. We're back, so let's get right into it. And let's move on into college football. The big thing this season has been the 12-team college football playoff, the extended playoff going from 4 to 12. So now a lot more teams are in the mix for the college football playoff. So let's start with 3 teams that are currently on the fringe, need a lot to do in order to get there. And we'll start with the team on the screen, the Colorado Buffaloes. This team is now in control of their own destiny. If they win out, they'll make the Big 12 championship. And if they win that game, that's an automatic lock to the college football playoff. So, is Colorado a playoff team or not? What do y'all think?
Very simple. Travis Hunter is not the Heisman, and Colorado is not going to the college football playoff. And there's a couple reasons why. One, they already have 2 losses, and there are too many teams right now, if you're looking at the at-large bids, there are too many teams above them with better resumes that are going to stop them from being in. Colorado's best game they've played is arguably, they've played K-State, they've lost to Nebraska. They're not a team that people are looking at that could be a serious threat in the college football playoff. And their only road is to get to the Big 12 championship where they would presumably play BYU. And I don't see BYU losing to Colorado. I think there's a lot to like about BYU. I think BYU is a playoff team and could actually make a run.
Let me say this. If Travis Hunter wins, if Colorado makes the playoff, is Travis Hunter the Heisman favorite to win?
No.
No.
Absolutely.
No.
I think it depends.
As someone who's gone against him for Heisman all year, he absolutely is. If he carries this team to a Heisman, yes, they're making the playoffs. They have a clear path to the playoffs, and it's not a path of no resistance, but it's a path of decently little resistance. All they have to go through is Utah and then Kansas. Those are their only 2 games that they could lose before the Big 12 championship, and then that's a championship game on a neutral site. And we just saw what Utah did to BYU. They took them down to the wire. And Utah, let's be frank, is not that good of a football team. This is a pretty simple path, and you have to give a lot of credit to Deion Sanders, who's turned this 2-win program last year into a potential college football playoff, not lock, but they got a really good shot. They have a better shot than a lot of teams have. There would be plenty of teams who would kill for the spot they are in, where they control their own destiny. And if they do it the Deion way, if Shedeur shows up, if Travis Hunter shows up, I don't see them losing. And I think they could pull off a stunner against BYU, and all of a sudden you have Colorado, something that everybody in the college football world wants, in the playoffs.
One quick flaw in your logic. You said that Utah took BYU to the wire. Colorado plays Utah next.
Yeah. So if Colorado beats Utah, then why should they not be able to beat BYU?
Utah's also a very hot and cold team this year. They haven't been as consistent, which is why I'm agreeing with you.
And Utah BYU, that's a rivalry game. That's the holy war. You throw the records out the window for rivalry games. I've said that over and over again. Utah could make things interesting with Colorado. I don't think they will. I think Colorado goes to the Big 12 title game. I just don't think they beat BYU. That's why I don't think they're in.
I said no. I don't mean to diss the Big 12 or anything, but they've only played Kansas State, right? The only good team that they've played so far. And I think that if they were in the Big 10 or the ACC, they'd probably have 3 wins right now, maybe 4. I don't I think of them as like a Mississippi State. Like I put them
Colorado?
on the same level. Yep. I don't think they would.
I'm pretty sure that Mississippi State doesn't have the number 1 pick in the draft, arguably one of the better head coaches in college football, and potentially even the first quarterback off the board in this upcoming draft.
But I think
as
they'd
well.
have similar records if they were in the SEC. I mean, Mississippi State is the worst team in the SEC.
Maybe in the SEC because there's a lot of firepower, but in the ACC, I think that Colorado would probably have just as good of a shot as Clemson at getting into the ACC championship currently.
But they haven't. Like, congratulations, you beat Texas Tech, you beat Arizona, you beat.
Congrats to Clemson. We beat Wake Forest.
I mean, you have a good point, but I just like. I think of them as like when the Savannah Bananas came to play Clemson the other day. It's like you're in the Big 12, you're playing all these teams, and then like.
Your competition isn't matching.
Exactly,
what theirs is.
and I don't
And I kind of
think
agree
that-
with it because you got to think what they play.
But they don't have to play anybody outside the Big 12. They just have to beat their Big
Correct.
12 opponents
But
to make the playoffs.
Mara's saying that if you were to switch Colorado and Mississippi State, we're going back to the comparison. If you switch those two, they would have the same record, which is fair. You're playing Alabama, LSU, Georgia.
Colorado State doesn't stand a chance against
they
any
would
of those
pull
teams.
off a stunner against one of those teams.
Yeah.
And I also don't think that they're gonna.
I think Colorado would beat Mizzou.
I can see that.
Well,
It's
Well,
arguable.
Mizzou isn't good. Like that's another.
Oh yeah, we are going past
I
the
don't
question.
think
Sorry, we
that,
got a comparison.
I don't think that they're going to beat both. What is it, Kansas and Utah? I don't think they're going to beat both, so I don't think they're going to be in the playoffs.
let's remember, Kansas just beat Iowa State. And Iowa State was largely looked at as they were going to win the Big 12 for a good few weeks.
Nobody's that good in the Big 12.
Exactly. That's why
proving our point.
is Colorado.
Yeah, they got as good of a shot as anybody.
It doesn't really
Somebody's got to win it. Somebody has to.
It's the. I said yes, but no. So I think they probably will make it, but they won't do anything. Because I agree with both parties here. Big 12, super weak. Not really like. If Colorado's one of the top heavy teams, they haven't played many good teams out there. They have 2 losses, whatever. But again, you have an easy schedule. You beat beat the easy teams, and they're a super polarizing team. But whatever. Why not?
I have actually not given my opinion yet, although I've chimed in. And I apologize for the noise. Apparently someone decided to do construction at 6 p.m. at night. But if I were to have to go with a pick, this is tough because I don't.
Gosh, Brian, what did you eat before this? My God, man.
I don't see. It's hard for me to see Colorado in the playoffs, but I can see a path where they get to it. It's a very yes but no question.
Yeah.
Like that, I'm kind of like in the same boat as Kane. Like,
Flip a coin, Brian.
if I'm going with it, I'm gonna say no because I trust BYU. I'm gonna say no. I'll write it down on my board so you guys
I
can have it
think,
written.
like-
I'm gonna say no, but like, yes, can I see it? Probabilities, they're probably not gonna be.
Yeah, that was my reasoning too, but I think it doesn't really matter because no matter what happens, we're going to see so much coverage of it. The goalposts are going to get moved whether they make it or not. They're going to be like Deion Sanders brought this team from 2 wins to almost in the college football playoff, and so
He did.
And their
he
record,
did.
There's
he
nothing
did.
wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it.
In
We're
their
going to hear all
conference.
about it.
They're second right now in conference record. They're 5-1. BYU 6-0. The rest are 4-2 or lower. So, or 4-2 and worse. And they have Utah, Colorado, Oklahoma State, which I believe are all conference games. Correct.
No.
Oklahoma State, Kansas, and Utah.
Yes.
Utah.
Yes.
Colorado plays all 3 of those.
Yes.
Which is 3 conference games. So if they win out, they control their own destiny to the Big 12 championship.
Right.
The question is, can they actually come over that hump and beat a top 10 team in BYU who's undefeated?
That's what we.
That's going to be tough.
But let me ask you this. I know Colorado gets way too much attention as it is, but we're going to give them just like 30 seconds more. If Colorado doesn't go anywhere and then Shadur ends up going to the draft, does Coach Prime follow wherever he goes?
No. Teams aren't like that.
Prime signed an extension too before the season.
Yeah.
Also, he said
He
doesn't
likes
wanna go
Colorado.
pro.
He likes Colorado.
Did you see their
Colorado's-
two-way
Colorado
player?
fits him well.
Tyler, the D lineman, offensive lineman, two-way. They're making a D lineman, offensive lineman, two-way player.
Hey.
And they have a second wide receiver.
You got to do what you got to do. His teams will only continue getting better because they get so much coverage. Because they were good this year, his recruits are only going to get better, and they'll actually have a complete team down the line. And if they can somehow stun us in the playoffs, who knows what'll happen?
I'm waiting for
I think what you got to look at from this Colorado team is that a lot of people counted this team out. They were 1-1. They were a 1-score win away against North Dakota State. They lost to Nebraska, and then they beat their rival Colorado State. And then there was kind of that little bit of uncertainty. I remember Colorado were a double-digit underdog going into Baylor, and they beat Baylor, which is good. So you got to give Coach Crime some credit. You got to give the players some credit, not doubting the program, especially what happened after last season. I think their over/under win total was, I believe 4 or 5.5. So well done to Coach Prime. We'll move on really quickly. Going to the SEC, there are so many different teams across the SEC that have a chance of making the playoff. The first team that probably lost their chance was LSU. They lost to Alabama. Not only lost it, but they got embarrassed on their own home turf. But another team that is interesting to follow is Texas A&M. This is a team that hasn't really gotten that big. I mean, LSU is probably the big win, but they've kind of dwindled a little bit. They lost to Notre Dame at the beginning of the year, especially at home. They lost to South Carolina, again, embarrassed at home in Willie B, I should say. And then they have Texas at the end of the year. It is at home. If they win that game, they will probably go into the SEC championship. But again, a lot on the line. Texas is a good opponent. Long story short, is A&M a playoff team?
Long story short, no. They're not beating Texas. It'll be a really exciting game. The hype before the game will be all this and that, and it's going to be a letdown game. Texas A&M is going to get destroyed. If you go back and look at their schedule, they've had some good wins, but they've also had way too many close losses that a good team, or close wins that a good team would not have. They beat Mississippi State by 10 points, Arkansas by 4 points, Bowling Green by 6 points, and Florida by 13 points. Those are not good teams. Those are teams that you should be beating comfortably by 2 scores, and they have not done that. It's going to finally catch up to them, and they're not going to be able to make it to the SEC championship, let alone the college football playoffs.
I'm going to go back to a yes but no. And the reason why I said I'm going to explain this. My yes is that they're playoff caliber. My no is that they won't make it. I was all for it until I saw their last game as Texas. No matter if it's home or away, you're playing a top 5 team, arguably top team if they didn't lose. I forgot who they lost to. Was it Georgia? Georgia. I mean, the worst part about it is that if you beat Texas and you make it to the Big 12, the SEC championship, you might have to play Texas again, which means you're going back-to-back games against Texas, and I can only see them at most winning one of those games. It's just such a tough road. No matter how good your schedule is, no matter how you make it there, it's going to be such a tough road playing Texas and then whatever other top team you're playing. For that reason, I do not see them making the playoffs.
I also said no. I'm kind of sad because I really liked A&M this year, but and I do think they're going to be, Arkansas and
Auburn?
Missouri?
no,
Mississippi State.
What?
No. Who are we talking about?
Who A&M plays the rest of the way.
New
Arkansas,
Mexico State.
Kentucky.
You did your research.
They don't play.
I did do my research. Arkansas and Kentucky.
All
I
of
think
us
they're going to
did
beat
as
them,
well.
and then they're going to get to Texas.
A&M,
and they're gonna,
A&M have New Mexico State at Auburn.
New Mexico
and then
State?
Texas.
Okay, so I wrote that down wrong. Not
Big
even
football
close.
program.
Not even close. So they're going to win out the season except for Texas, and then they're not making it.
Okay, this one is for my best friend back home who's a freshman at A&M. Gig 'em! Oops, wrong way. No way in hell A&M's going to the playoff, and the reason why is the exact same reason as Colorado. Their only way in is to win the conference championship because they have 2 losses at the moment. They would have 3 if they lose either at Texas or the SEC title game. If they have 3 losses, they're not getting in, and if they beat Texas, they're definitely not winning the SEC. They're not winning both of those games.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not even going to write it down. I say no.
Again, yeah, it's kind of a little bit an embarrassment of riches at this point. There are 7 teams that either have 2 losses or less in the SEC. And some of those wins are a lot bigger. I mean, look at Ole Miss. They took down Georgia. I mean, Alabama, again, took down LSU. They took down Georgia. Texas A&M don't really have that win unless they go out and beat Texas. And, I mean, I agree with all of you guys. I don't think that they do. But moving on to probably, I mean, you guys have been anticipating being talked about with Clemson. Let's talk about Clemson. There's a little bit more of a window for them to make the ACC championship following Miami's loss to Georgia Tech this past weekend. Miami still have a little bit of a struggle with the next opponents. They have Wake Forest, and then they have to go to the Carrier Dome in Syracuse, which, very good team with a very good offense. But then if you look on Clemson's part, they travel to Pitt this weekend. Then they have the Citadel, and then another home game against South Carolina, which both those teams could be ranked. We're going to talk about both those matchups later on in this episode. But is Clemson a playoff team?
I'm going to start us off with yes. Now, I don't know if this is confidence, cockiness, or denial to accept the truth, but I'm going to believe it's a yes.
Third one. Yeah.
I just believe it's yes. Miami does have to play 2 more ACCs, while I see them wiping the floor with Wake Forest. Or is it 3 more? I don't remember if it's 2 or 3 more games.
2.
2 more in the ACC, right?
SMU is 3.
SMU is 3. So I see them wiping the floor with Wake Forest. I don't see Wake Forest doing anything to them. But I can see a world, and I predict personally that Syracuse will beat them in Syracuse to help Clemson get to the ACC championship, because I believe Clemson will win in Pitt next week. There you go, opening the way. So Clemson then will go to face SMU in the ACC championship, and I think they can beat SMU. Clemson has the ability to beat any team. It's if they get in their way or not. If they get in their own way, they're not going to beat them. If they can get out of their way, they're going to win. So I have them going to the playoffs.
I said no. I want you guys to think about the Louisville game for a second. And then now picture that same Clemson team back playing Lenore Sellers in the South Carolina defense.
But that game doesn't.
That wouldn't affect the ACC championship. It's conference record.
Okay, I still don't think we're going to make it. I don't think that we're going to pass Miami, SMU, or A&M. So.
It pains me to say it, but I'm going to say no, and with my beautiful tiger paw drawing, just because we lost at the wrong time. The tiebreaker in the ACC is record versus common opponents. Miami beat Louisville. We did not. Had we lost to Pitt and we had 1 loss and Miami had 1 loss, we'd be ahead right now because the next tiebreaker is points scored, which we have that beat in conference play. So we lost at the wrong time. Lost to Pitt, we'd be in. Lost to Louisville, we're out.
I'm saying the same thing. I'm also saying no. If you've been watching these last few games from Clemson, it has been far short of inspiring. They have not looked like a great team, and they lost to Louisville, which was supposed to be one of the teams that they were supposed to beat, and then they had like the ability to lose later on when the schedule got harder, and I just don't think they can run the table and get back there.
Let me just ask, how many undefeated college football teams are there this year?
4.
4 in all of college football. Miami was one of them. Was anybody surprised that they lost to Georgia Tech?
No.
No, because we've been seeing this Miami team all year go into shootouts with non-offensive teams. Cal took them to the wire, putting up big points on their defense. Who else took them to the wire? Virginia Tech, who clearly is not an offensive team because they just put up 14 points against Clemson, 7, and then a garbage time touchdown. Yeah. Syracuse is an offensive fire, they're loaded with firepower on that offense. Kyle McCord was one of the best quarterbacks in college football for a majority of this year. Now, I'm not saying he's now is, but he can go out there and he can go shot for shot with Miami, especially at Syracuse. Clemson then has a path to the ACC championship because all they have to do is beat Pitt. Pitt stumbled against UVA. Clemson's on the come up. We bounce back after the bye week. Bye weeks sometimes do that to people. You come out sluggish. Louisville is a good team. They have 3 ranked losses. I'm not taking much stock in that game. You're right. We lost at the wrong time. It sucks. But Miami could lose at the wrong time too. And wouldn't it just be the most Miami thing to go out there, to have your path set, and lose 2 of your last 3 ACC games to miss the playoffs? That would just be would anybody be surprised if Miami did that?
No.
You are half right in your point you made about Georgia Tech.
Half right. I'll take that. Clemson's making the playoffs. They're going to go out there. Miami's going to lose. They're going to beat Pitt. It's going to be a comfortable win. Who cares what happens against South Carolina? Clemson is finding a way into this college football playoffs.
Here's the problem. So when we talk Miami, Georgia Tech, the reason that we're not surprised about that is because not only does Miami have a history of losing to Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech wasn't going to allow Miami to play the way they like to play. They are explosive. They like to score fast. They like to score often. Georgia Tech was going to control the ball, not allow them to do that. Syracuse doesn't do that. Syracuse is going to play shot for shot with them, and when it comes down to a quarterback battle, Cam Ward has Kyle McCord beat. So I don't think that is what's going to help us. But I'll pose you this. Say that does happen. Say we get into the ACC championship. Say we're playing an unbeaten SMU. Do we really think we're going to beat SMU?
If Peter Woods is back, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Because SMU runs the ball. And Clemson's defense, we saw against Louisville, really struggled to stop the run. Now, Virginia Tech did not try to run the ball on us as much as they should have. But our defensive line stepped up in that game, even without Peter Woods, even without DeMonte Capehart. They stepped up and they did their job. If they go out there with that same mentality and you have Peter Woods back, setting the edge, forcing SMU to go one way with the football pretty much every time, Clemson can absolutely go out there and win that. Now, will they? Who knows what Clemson team will show up. But if the Clemson offense from the second half shows up and the Clemson defense from all of last game show up, I have no doubt in my mind that SMU will go down.
I think another scary thing happened this weekend that a lot of people didn't expect was Cade started throwing the ball deep. Like every single play was a 50-50 jump ball. He was giving his receivers chance. It's almost like building chemistry. Now, granted, not all of them were great. Not all of them were good throws. But he's getting that trust up, and I think another 2-3 weeks against semi-opponents, getting that trust, getting that chemistry, you could see a very well-rounded offense come into SMU.
The problem is if SMU plays a too high safety look, Cade goes dark.
I feel like that just averages out because he didn't throw a single deep ball against Louisville.
Yeah.
So that's just making up for
Louisville
the lack of
took
throws
away
there.
the deep ball completely. So they tried to take what they could get and they didn't. But anyways, Clemson's making the ACC championship. They're going to stun some people, and they're going to make the college football playoff.
I'm shocked with the lack of Tiger pride
Kyle
here.
McCord, let's go.
We're all Clemson students. We're all saying no.
We're about to talk about Clemson again, I think.
Yes, we are. Obviously, there's a great opportunity for this Clemson team,
Loudest
especially
scrimmage.
seeing how the way Miami lost. And, I mean, if you're looking at this Syracuse team, I mean, they've won pretty close games in pretty bad environments, and they're playing this game at home. I mean, they beat NC State at home. NC State, I get it, but you're winning in an away environment that builds momentum. You beat UNLV in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium. It's another big win. You beat Georgia Tech, who just beat Miami. That was earlier on the season. I know that we're playing the chain game here, but I think you get what I mean here, that this team definitely has the potential to do so. And they do have, I wouldn't say cakewalk wins. You do have at Cal, and you are playing UConn right before you're playing Miami at home. So I think that could be very interesting to follow. That's going to be probably one of the biggest games to watch if you are an ACC fan. So I'm very excited for that. But let's move on. And I think I know how all you guys are going to have this game going. We'll go to our college football pick'em stage. We have 3 games, all pretty tight games. We'll start at Acrisure Stadium. The Pitt Panthers, the number 17 Clemson Tigers, they're traveling there. I think we know how this is going to go. You only have one sentence to say why you're picking the respective team.
Clemson, because it's a must-win, and SMU broke Pitt.
Clemson UVA game kind of proves it.
I've never liked Western Pennsylvania. Go Tigers.
Cade Bell can't run his offense the way he wants to.
I'm going Clemson, and I think that Cade Klubnik play, being a Ravens fan, I've seen a bunch of plays that have turned seasons around. I think that Cade Klubnik, get out of sack, chuck it to TJ Moore, I think it's going to turn around our season.
I agree. I think it does instill confidence, especially with a play like that, especially with how that Ashton Hampton play was a very big play in terms of churning the tide of the season, especially for the momentum, those freshman guys. We'll move on from that. We'll go to Williams-Brice Stadium. Another big eliminator, especially for Missouri, although they're really far out of it. They do only have 2 losses. It's number 24 Missouri. They're facing the number 23 South Carolina Gamecocks. The Gamecocks are a 10-point favorite in this game. How does this one go? You can speak your mind about this one, by the way.
Fake USC is coming out on top, and it's not even going to be close. These might be the 2 furthest apart teams that are separated by 1 seed. I don't know if that made sense, but these 2 teams are separated by 1 seed, and I've never seen teams that are this close in the rankings be so vastly different talent-wise. Missouri is awful. They have no right to be ranked. South Carolina is on the come-up. Their defense is absolutely dominant. They fly around, and their offense is figuring it out. They're at home. Missouri has nothing left to play for in their season. South Carolina runs away with this one.
Allow me to cue Pat McAfee here and say, give me the Cox, because South Carolina is winning this. It won't even be close. I mean, Missouri is just, every chance they've had to prove themselves, they've been embarrassed. They got embarrassed by Texas A&M, who South Carolina beat. They got embarrassed by Alabama, who South Carolina only lost to a missed 2-point conversion by. So you look at just comparison of common opponents between the 2, and South Carolina has this game won by 30.
Yeah, I'm saying the same thing. I don't know if he's going to start next week for Mizzou, but Drew Pine went to the rival to my high school. I didn't like him then. I don't like him now. Go Gamecocks.
I said go Cox.
That far.
I'm not really a Gamecocks fan, I promise, but South Carolina outscored their opponents 107-36 in the past 3 games, and Brady Cook is hurt, so he's injured. I don't think it's that serious. I think he's still going to play, but he's not 100%.
Everything in me wanted to go Missouri until I saw that Brady Cook might not start, and their center's out. And I think that if you're at the middle of your line is gone, you're done. So I'm going to go U of SC. It was a gut feeling. Like, everything's against Missouri. Brady Cook's going in, I think it's his last season, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said earlier, Griffin told us earlier, the most dangerous team in college football is one that has nothing to lose. And if they don't even have a shot to make it in, I would not be shocked at all to see Missouri upset South Carolina. I'm going to pick U of SC just because of all the injuries that are piling up. But don't be shocked if we come back here next week and Missouri somehow pulls a 1-point upset on like a wacky last-minute play.
I'll play this though too. South Carolina also has nothing to lose.
Yeah.
They have no path to the playoff. They have 3 losses. There are way too many SEC teams. I can't see it.
I also think
I can't see it.
But I think it also goes into the fact that Missouri's gone under the radar and South Carolina's kind of.
Whoa.
Missouri started this year as a top 10 team.
They started. That's a past tense.
And
I'm talking about
they
right now.
sucked.
Right now, correct. Right now they are under the radar.
They've
no
been
one's talking
awful.
about them. No
They're
one's,
terrible.
they've been ranked practically the entire season. They
They
suck.
are the team. Every time the rankings come out, Missouri is the team that you're like, why are they still in this?
Correct.
It's ridiculous.
Just don't be shocked because they're an under team. Missouri flies under the radar. South Carolina is peaking right now. They are getting up. They're going to be good. There's going to be a good game against Clemson. But South Carolina is coming into the limelight. They're going to be shown. Don't be shocked if Missouri comes out here and just plays their tails off and somehow keeps it either a close game or upsets it by 1.
I mean, if A&M couldn't do it, what makes you think that Mizzou could?
I wouldn't use the words under the radar. I mean, South Carolina wasn't ranked at the beginning of the season, so.
But who's talking about Missouri as a top 25 team?
No one.
Nobody, because they're not.
Shouldn't be there.
They're in the top 25.
Everybody's talking about them because they're like, why in the world is this team still in the top 25?
Every good team they've played, they've gotten killed.
And they barely beat Oklahoma.
Kennesaw State was 0-6. Liberty was 6-0.
I mean,
They beat Auburn like 4 points.
This is so.
Listen, I do get what you mean. I do get what you mean with these 2 teams, but if you're playing the kingpin of not having anything to lose and shocking opponents, it's going to be South Carolina. I am very interested because I do have South Carolina too. All for you 5 pick South Carolina. I think you know where I'm getting at. But we'll move on to another SEC matchup, which I think is much more important because Georgia, with another loss, I can't see this team making the college football playoff with 3 losses. Number 6, Tennessee. They're at top of the SEC. If they win, they'd most likely secure their spot in the SEC championship, which could be huge. This was a SEC championship that most likely saw Georgia, Bama, Georgia, Texas, Bama, Texas, and now there's a speculation for it to be Tennessee, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Texas. So it's Tennessee, it's Georgia, it's in Athens. Who takes this game?
So, honestly, when I was thinking about this show coming back this week, and I knew we'd talk about this game because I thought it was going to be 2 8-1 teams. But Georgia went and did something stupid on Saturday and lost to Ole Miss. Granted, at Ole Miss, Carson Beck played absolutely awful. There was no run game whatsoever for Georgia. It just seemed like everything kind of fell apart. But that was on the road. Georgia's home. This is a must-win game for Georgia because if they do not win here, they're not going to the playoff. They're not going to lose a game the rest of the way. This is the game. This is do or die. This is you're in the playoff or you're not. They need this one, and I can't see Kirby Smart losing a game that's a must-win.
I don't love that ending statement because I totally could see him losing a must-win game. We see him do it quite a bit in the SEC championship. But I think that Carson Beck will throw 5 interceptions and Georgia will still win because that seems to be the game they like to play. And I mean, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago just about how Tennessee would stack up against the Georgia defense, and I just don't think they can do it very well. I mean, they lost to Ole Miss at Ole Miss. They still only allowed 22 points because the offense laid basically a goose egg. I think it's Georgia all the way.
Real quick, you mentioned that Kirby Smart loses must-win games called the SEC Championship. 1, he plays those against Alabama. 2, those aren't must-win. Georgia's made the playoff for every year except 1 when they've been in the SEC Championship and have played Alabama. They've either won that game and been it or lost and still been in the playoff. They've had nothing to lose going into that game. Your season is over if you do not win Saturday night.
I also said UGA. Although Carson Beck has had 7 interceptions in the past 3 games, I think Tennessee needs to play the same defense they did against Alabama, but it's in Athens, so I don't think they're going to be able to do that, especially because Nico, however, I've been trying to pronounce his last name for like 3 weeks now. I still can't do it, so I give up. His status, I think he's hurt, right? I think he's hurt, so I don't think they're going to win.
There we go, because I have a feeling you're going to be against. I'm going Georgia. It's been, 1,463 days since they lost a game to another team not called Alabama. They have, I think it's 3 losses to Alabama in the last 3 years. It was like 2021 or 2022 of November. I don't see them breaking that streak and then losing back-to-back games. It's just, you haven't seen Georgia do that in years, and I just don't see them doing it this week, especially in Athens. If this was in Tennessee or, Knoxville, I could see it happening, but this is in Athens. Georgia just got their, let's just say they just got their game handed to them, and I think that Georgia's going to win this one. I do think Carson Beck's going to throw probably more picks than more interceptions than touchdowns. He's thrown 7 interceptions to 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games, but I have Georgia winning.
Josh Heupel is confident that Nico Iamaleava will be starting on Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is a game.
You don't miss these types of games when you're the starting quarterback
Right.
of a top 10 team in the country.
So he's not
Right.
missing it, but is he still playing 100%?
It doesn't
Maybe
matter.
not. But they don't need that because they got this kid
Dylan Sampson.
Named
I
Dylan
already know where you're
who
going.
has
with this.
over 1,000 rushing yards this season already. Flown under the radar a little bit. Nobody's really talking about him. Tennessee's kind of flown under the radar too. What seed are they? 6?
8, I think.
8, 6, somewhere in there. That's pretty crazy. And Georgia is now ranked below them. Tennessee is the favorites going into this game. Tennessee is going to ruin Bulldog fans, Bulldog Nation. Georgia is going to come crumbling to its knees on Saturday. Athens is going to look, actually, they're probably pretty respectful after the game. No, I'm just kidding. They're going to bark up a storm. Tennessee is going to go in there and dominate Georgia. And the question we're going to be asking ourselves next time on the Extra Point is what happened to the Georgia dynasty?
So you have Tennessee.
Tennessee.
That is
all the way.
You're the only person on the panel that picked Tennessee.
All the way.
Okay. A couple problems with that. Number one, first off, I'll go on a different tangent. When was the last time we saw a quarterback where last year he looked like he could have been a first-round pick, and this year he regresses and almost looks like he should barely be drafted?
We have a lot this year.
Carson Beck has declined significantly from last year to this year.
I feel like he's proven my point.
Yeah, why do you?
But
Here it is. Here it is.
when you're talking about Dylan Sampson and you're talking about the Georgia Bulldogs, the one thing that the Georgia Bulldogs dynasty, as you coined it, has had is elite defense. Yep. That has not left the building for Georgia. They did not play well on Saturday against Ole Miss, but they should have won that. They should have lost that game by a hell of a lot more than they did.
That's fair.
Their defense is elite. They're top 10 in rushing yards. They've played really good running backs. I mean, you look at the teams they've played. They've played Texas. They've played Alabama. They've played Ole Miss, teams that have really, really good running backs.
What are the 2 most important factors when it comes to looking at statistics and winning a football game? Scoring first and winning the turnover margin. And you know what you can't do?
Lose
When
both.
your quarterback throws 5 interceptions
Lose both.
is win the turnover margin.
Well, that's true. But yeah,
It's a fluke.
let's ignore the anomaly where the
Beck did it the
Lions
last
still
3
won.
weeks.
And at some point, it has to catch up to them. Clemson did the same thing. Clemson was dominating these teams. They were finding ways to win. They looked like they were this fire-powered offense, and now Georgia doesn't look like that right now, but they won the games they should, and it finally caught up to them. Things finally caught up to Clemson, and Carson Beck is going to finally catch up to Georgia.
Maybe if Carson Beck's girlfriend tweets again about him, it'll reverse
Hey,
the flunk.
my QB is a QT.
Oh my God.
He's actually, don't say it on that TV.
But
He's an INT.
But this game, when you're talking about, okay, there were a lot of teams, there were a handful of teams who, when this season started with a 12-team playoff, were looking at it like, we can lose a couple games and we'll be just fine. Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, any of those teams could have afforded to lose a couple games and be just fine. Georgia's done that. Georgia's not worried. This is a game they've won before. They've been undefeated, where Tennessee has had all the potential to knock them off the mountain, and they haven't done it. And that's been at Tennessee. This is at Georgia. This is must win for Georgia. This is the most important game Georgia's played since the national championship 2 years ago.
And at a certain point, a dynasty has to come crashing down.
Right.
I think, but everything you talked about.
That was on Bama this year.
Yeah, everything you talked about with their seeding is probably just going to be fuel to their fire. They're definitely mad from the loss last week, and now they're ranked below.
Yeah,
Tennessee.
but they haven't had to deal with a loss like this in so long that you don't know how this team is going to respond. I trust Kirby Smart is one of the best coaches in college football, don't get me wrong, but you don't know how this team is going to respond to a loss like that. They haven't had a loss like that in the last 5 years of this program. So can this team respond the way they want to and bounce back, or are they going to come crumbling internally? Are they going to flip to Carson Beck and be like, yo, stop throwing picks? Are they going to pull a George Pickens on him and just go tackle him? We don't know what's going to happen with this team.
The only argument I have against that is the last time that Georgia lost a game that took them out of the playoffs was last year. And in the next game they played, they won by 60. I'm not saying that's going to happen Saturday, and that's Florida State. And there's different reasons of why that happened, obviously, and I'm not going to discount those. Florida State doesn't even acknowledge the score of that game and the plaque they created to commemorate their season last year, but that's beside the point. In a must-win game for Georgia, you don't count out Georgia, because you look at Tennessee. Tennessee now is in a position they can afford to lose this game. They've only got one loss. There is a mosh pit of teams in the SEC with 2 losses right now. You look at A&M, you look at Alabama, you look at Georgia. LSU fell Saturday.
And who's going to be next? It's going to be Georgia in Athens. It's going to be everybody's against them. Nobody is counting on these Tennessee Volunteers, and they're going to surprise some people.
I think that could be a good game. I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a one-score game. I'm not going to tell you who I have, but I do think that, I think both of you guys are making up great points, especially in terms of Carson Beck, Kirby Smart, Tennessee going under the radar, especially in the run game. Their defense looks better than they've ever have done. So you never know. I'm excited for this game. College game day is there, so I'm excited. We'll move on to NFL pick'ems, and what a slate for the NFL too. We start with Thursday Night Football, and then we have just plenty of good games. An ACC divisional round rematch, an AFC North game, which is going to be fun. Brian, I know you're excited for that one. We'll start on Thursday Night Football, an NFC East matchup for the first place spot in the NFC East, which, it's just those 2 teams. And then, Jordan, I'm sorry, Cowboys-Giants not really doing well.
No.
But it's the 7-3 Commanders. They're going to the Link. Tough place to play. 7-2 Eagles. Who takes this game on Thursday Night Football?
Let's go Birds. The Commanders, I thought they were good for a while. The Steelers lost. And then the Bears, I think that was luck. So after those 2 games, I was kind of and then obviously we killed the Cowboys this weekend. Sorry.
Killed our second strings, yeah, good job.
Because Dak, they probably played better than Dak, I'm not going to lie. I know you yelled at me earlier for saying that, but
Yelled is
whatever.
Harsh, but
I like to use that word, though.
12 for 24 for 45
and so
yards
now we
says-
lead the NFC East, and so yeah, let's go Birds.
I'm looking at one very bad man on this Eagles roster, and his name is Saquon Barkley. Commanders give up 4.8 yards per carry, one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, and he is going to run all over them. It's not even going to be close. Give me the Eagles all day.
as biased as I can be, I'm just going to be as analytical as possible and say, fly, Eagles, fly. Jalen Hurts has put up 30 fantasy points for me in each of the last 3 weeks. I don't see him stopping. And, I mean, you talked about it. Saquon Barkley, he was kind of hurt last week, hurt his elbow. They limited him. They're playing a really, really bad Cowboys team. So they didn't need him to play. But I think they're resting people up for Thursday. They're going to finally be back home, and I think they're going to kill the Commanders.
I had to look up a few stats real quick to make sure I could make a proper decision. I'm going to go Philly. This is definitely going to be a ground game. I was actually shocked last night to see that Jaden Daniels still hasn't hit, I believe, double-digit passing touchdowns. He is not passing. He's doing well. He's not turning over the ball. But their offense is primarily built on the run, and the Eagles right now are 4th in yards allowed on defense, period. So I just don't think they can get as good of a running attack. I wish we were grounded on the field. Like, I just don't think they can set their running attack that way. And I think Barkley right now is just on a tear. I mean, granted, he had a down game last week, but the games before that, I mean, he has been on a tear receiving-wise and rushing-wise. I just don't see him slowing down. And Commanders, they had a good fight against the Steelers. Some argue that the refs blew it with the first down call, whatever you want to say. I have the Eagles winning this one, especially since it's in Philly, which is always a tough place to play.
So in years past, Dallas would be in this position where they could be first place in the NFC East. That has been far from the case this year. But isn't it cute how these guys are making a way too strong of a case for an Eagles team that could beat the Cowboys' backups? Yeah. And who else have they played? They've played, let's see, Cleveland. They've played Jacksonville. They've played New Orleans. And won all those games by less than a touchdown, mind you.
The Commanders played?
The Commanders played Baltimore and only lost by 7.
They only beat the Bears by a Hail Mary.
They beat the
That was
Bears
like
by a
what?
Hail Mary.
6 Bengals?
Which the Bears got blown out this week, am I right?
They did. But
The Bears got blown out by the Patriots.
again,
No, you're
I
right
think they
about
got
this one.
And Caleb Williams had to get helped up by the defensive line of the other team because his own offensive line didn't like him,
and
or whatever the case is.
I like him, but yeah.
They like him, but it's not
that's
pretty over.
well, that's the chain game.
Anyway, go ahead.
Flip that board around.
I'm picking the Commanders, and there's a few reasons why. Number one, the Eagles have 2 players that can win them a football game. We've already established this. Jalen Hurts can do a little 1-yard QB sneak for touchdowns, and Saquon Barkley can do what Saquon Barkley does. But when you're looking at the Commanders, Jaden Daniels doesn't make mistakes. He does not turn the ball over.
Kind of hurt, so.
Okay, he was hurt and threw a 60-yard Hail Mary to win a football game. So
Against the
Did
Bears.
he hit
against the
anyone,
Bears.
or did it
They also
bounce
only
off
beat-
someone's head
I was
and
looking at this.
He
happened to be in the right
threw it
he
spot?
still threw it that far.
I gotta give him credit on that one. That was an insane.
They also lost to the Bucs by 17 and beat the Giants by 3. So, anyway.
Wow.
There's a lot. The NFL has a
It's
lot of
very
parity
up for
right
grabs.
now. Let's
The NFL
just
has
say
a
right
lot
up
of
for
parity.
that.
But anyway, go ahead with your point.
But
Sorry,
so here's the reason why I'm going Hail Commanders. So number one was Jaden Daniels. He doesn't make mistakes. He's not going to in this game. The Eagles' defense can create a lot of turnovers against Dallas's second-string quarterback, but they're not going to be able to do that against a guy who doesn't turn the ball over, and Jaden Daniels is that guy. Brian Robinson is a very good running back for Washington. He's done very well for them offensively. They have a very dual-threat offense. But here's the third reason, and the biggest reason why the Commanders are going to win this game. The trade deadline, and when they acquired Marshawn Lattimore, because that puts a guy on A.J. Brown, and he's not going to be able to be as effective as Philly would need him to be to move the ball down the field in this ball game.
Does Philly not have another Heisman winning wide receiver?
They do.
And one of the Penn State.
However, the thing with Devontae Smith, and you can feel free to look up his season stats, I'll even allow you time to do that, he will either have a great game or he'll be non-existent.
So I tell you why.
You don't know which one he's going to be.
Whenever A.J. Brown is in the game, he doesn't have a great game.
Right.
And that happens. A.J. Brown is healthy. A.J. Brown is dominating. Devontae Smith's stats suffer. You go against the Bengals. A.J. Brown was a non-factor. He had like 5 catches for like 60 yards.
Mm-hmm.
What did Devontae Smith do?
Pretty darn good game.
Yeah. Devontae Smith, the number 1 receiver in any game when A.J. Brown missed like 3, he put up like 100 plus on the Saints against a very good defense at that time. Of course, now the Saints have tumbled, but
Now the Saints fell off a cliff.
I mean, but that was still the Saints team that was averaging
Right.
40 a game. So
Right.
we can bounce around and we can say the Eagles. Like, listen, I'm a fan. I'll put that out there. We can say they stomped on the Cowboys' backups.
Yes.
I mean, but they played the Cowboys' defense, which was at full strength.
No,
They
was not.
Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs were there. Do you want to talk about two guys that can win football games? They were out there. And, I mean, the Commanders, Jaden Daniels has had a fantastic season. But it's with a caveat with, again, he's playing, like Cam Taylor-Britt said, a very simplified offense. And now they're going to walk out there against a defense that has been on a tear. And you could say, easy schedule. I don't really care. I think the Eagles are going to win.
However, let me ask you this, because you
Still your quarterback.
because you mentioned
Really good.
because you
Are you a
mentioned
Seahawks fan?
you mentioned the Hail Mary,
Lions now.
and you mentioned how they needed luck to beat the Bears. Well, you look at the best team in football right now. Sometimes you need a little luck to win some ball games. The Chiefs have had some luck to win.
I think we're going to get to that.
Yeah,
I think we're going to get to that in
I
a
was gonna
second.
have one more.
Griffin, I know you.
I was going to have one more
counterpoint
counterpoint to this.
I'm sorry?
I know you have an opinion.
I was going to
on
have
this Eagles game.
one more counterpoint.
I do.
To the Commanders one.
I do have an opinion on this game. If you look at the way the Eagles have lost both games, they lost to Atlanta Falcons, a one-score game. They lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both teams with heavy pass offenses. I know that you could say whatever you want against Atlanta, but when the Eagles played the Falcons on Monday Night Football, Bijan Robinson did not have a good night. It was all Kirk Cousins. He led that game-winning drive, got past the defense. That's a lot for a rookie quarterback, especially in prime time in a hostile environment. Can Jaden Daniels do it? I think that he could. I don't think that he will on Thursday night. That is my take behind it. But I'm going to move on to the next game just because of time constraints and all that. I do think that that game is going to be a great game, though, especially to see how the benchmark for the Commanders is. But the next game is two teams that know the benchmark already, and it is to go for the Super Bowl, especially with how the Pittsburgh Steelers have been looking. 7-2, huge win over the Commanders, who we just talked about. The Ravens 7-3. Huge win over the Bengals on last Thursday Night Football. So they have a little bit more of the edge in terms of how long of rest that they have had. They've had a few big wins over the course. I know I'm going to let Brian take it away first. We got the Ravens. We got the Steelers. It's in Acrisure Stadium. The Terrible Towels will be flying. Renegade will be playing. But who takes it in the AFC North?
Thank you for passing to me, but I'm still deciding. I'm stuck between the two. Yes. Hey, I'm a fan, but I want to be honest with my opinion. I don't want to just sit there and be like, the Ravens win it. Because as hot as the Ravens are right now, their defense is gosh awful. Really bad, pass-wise. And Russell Wilson right now in 3 games has had the third highest passer rating at 105 point. I think it was like 8. They have done really well. They have put up a lot of points on offense. The defense is where I draw the line. The issue is that if you also look in the past, the Steelers have had Lamar's number. As much as it pains me to say it, the Steelers have had Lamar's number. I believe he's like 1-9, 1-7, maybe 3. And he has a losing record. That's all I know, and it's at least 7 losses. It is not a good record. But I think he's just on such a hot streak right now. I'm going to go Ravens. I'm going to stick with my fandom. I think they will pull it off. I think it will be a semi-high scoring, 30-20, 34-28, something like that. But I do have the Ravens winning. I don't know if it would be as easy as a cakewalk as some may think because Lamar's playing on such a high level.
I'm a big Bird guy, but I think people are going to be surprised. A lot of people are expecting this not to be close. The Steelers are kind of Lamar Jackson's Achilles heel. You could go with any word right there. He has lost 7 of the last 8 matchups against the Steelers, so I think this is going to be a little bit closer. But the Ravens are just doing too good right now. And you know who they didn't have in those 7 losses? Derrick Henry. He's going to be the X factor in this game. When you have 2 guys like that in your backfield, Lamar can run it, Derrick Henry can run it, Lamar can throw it. I don't know who can catch it on that team, but they figured it out.
Nelson Aguilar.
Zay Flowers.
Yeah.
Mark.
You guys are proving my point. Anyways,
I don't know, Zay's third in receiving yards.
I'm just saying,
600.
somebody's got to catch the ball.
He is a
The
gremlin.
Steelers somehow got to 7-2. This is going to be a closer game than people think, but Ravens are going to pull this one out pretty clearly.
Must say.
I think there was a lot of questions as to why Pittsburgh decided to bench Justin Fields when they were 4-2 and Russell Wilson was healthy. Well, since Russell Wilson's came back, the Steelers are unbeaten. Hard to argue with Mike Tomlin for making that change. However, for my literature people out there, which I'm not one, but I know this, Edgar Allan Poe wrote a poem called The Raven. And the Ravens win this game Sunday because of Lamar Jackson, because of Derrick Henry, because of Mark Andrews, who's now become reliable at the tight end spot. At first, early in this season, he was non-existent. but the last few games he has showed up in a major way when they've needed him the most. And it's just too much offensive firepower, no matter how good the Steelers' defense is, and it's really good. You've got TJ Watt, you've got a lot of different guys who can disrupt Lamar, but Lamar's the best improviser in football. And when you're looking at a game where you're going to need the quarterback to make a play to win it, Lamar's going to make that play. And if not, Derrick Henry's just going to get 35 carries and they'll win it 24-17.
Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on the Ravens. Alongside the Lions, I think they're a number 1 power-rated team, so I think the Ravens are going to win. I don't think it's going to be as drastic. I think it'll be close. They both won by 1 point last week, but I have the Ravens.
I haven't decided yet. It's the thing with the AFC North where it somehow always comes down to a 2-point conversion attempt at the end of the game. And the Ravens were on the right side of that coin finally on Thursday night. But I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen it be 20-19. The Ravens had just scored, and John Harbaugh says, go for 2, and they don't get it. And I mean, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers defense, they know what they're doing when it comes to Lamar Jackson. But then again, he is Lamar Jackson. So I could go against the whole panel and say Steelers here. I'm really undecided. I could flip a coin right now, but I think I might.
Yes.
Heads will be Steelers. Siri, flip a coin. It's tails. I go Ravens.
no matter what, if you had the coin flipped, I had the Steelers winning this game. I think you guys are forgetting that the game is at home. I apologize.
After I chose
Steelers have the Ravens number. I do think that the way that the Steelers team is made, especially watching that Commanders game too, especially away from home, I think the Steelers are a Super Bowl contender. We can get to that at a later date because there is a much bigger game at 4:25 that Tony Romo is going to be so happy to call. It's the 9-0 Kansas City Chiefs, the 8-2 Buffalo Bills. The Bills, a chance to do it in Buffalo, take down the Chiefs. They weren't able to do so in the ACC divisional round, but here they are. They have the 9-0 Chiefs coming off of a kick block to stay undefeated. People are calling the Chiefs one of the most fraudulent teams in the NFL to be 9-0, and here they are. Are the Bills going to do it? What do you guys think?
There's one guy that I will never bet against in sports. His name is Tom Brady. And you know who is currently in conversations with Tom Brady?
Not one person.
Kevin Burkhardt.
Patrick Mahomes.
What? He's the broadcaster.
All right.
That was good. I like that.
All right. Okay,
He's the
Mr.
best.
Literal. That was funny. No, that was actually pretty good.
That was good. I like that.
Well, now you just ruined my whole train of thought. Patrick Mahomes. He's in conversation with Tom Brady. He's on track to beat many of Tom Brady's records. Now, will he do it for 20 more years? Who knows? But I learned not to bet against Brady, and Patrick Mahomes has proven to me that I should not bet against him. It's as simple as that. I don't think the Chiefs are the better team. I think they're the second worst 9-0 team of all time, or at least in recent memory, behind that Steelers team a few years ago. But I'm not going to bet against Patrick Mahomes. He's given me no reason to bet against him, and I'm going to stick with the Chiefs on this one.
I got blasted after the AFC Championship game because I kept trying to say that some of those blatant calls were bad. You guys can watch the tape yourself. I'm going Chiefs.
I did.
No, I'm saying now, this year. Almost every single one of their wins has come down to a controversial call. Every team has had it this year. The officiating has been awful this year.
His toe was out.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Okay, you didn't listen. I'm saying in the last 10 weeks, every single one of the Chiefs wins. Last week, there was a blatant...
Isaiah Likely's toe was...
No, I'm not talking about the Ravens. I'm talking about the Chiefs and Broncos.
Okay.
I don't know where you're at. Okay. I got Chiefs. It just seems like everything's in their favor. It seems like the script is written for them, quote unquote, if you say script. I just want to make it fun. But I do have the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, in all seriousness, Patrick Mahomes always seems to have Josh Allen's number. No matter what they do, no matter who he has or who he doesn't have, Patrick Mahomes finds a way to win games. Forget the refs end of it. Simply as the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, I have them. I trust Mahomes more than I trust Allen, no matter where it is.
Well, I mean, you're right. It is really hard to watch a single Chiefs game because they always win. And it always feels like there's nothing you can do except watch the Chiefs win. But, I mean, Mahomes doesn't always have Allen's number. He's 4-3 against the guy, and he's 1-3 against him in the regular season. And I think the Bills are at home here. They're a really good team if Josh Allen can get rid of this turnover problem that he's caused for himself this last few weeks. And I feel like this could be the Bills game. It really just comes down to if they can get up by 2 scores and not allow some miracle drive for the Chiefs.
So who are you taking?
Don't quote me on it, but the Bills.
We're going to quote
Quoting you on it.
We're going to quote him on that.
I'm going to caption it.
So I'm a big personal bias person, if you guys haven't been able to tell. But I'm really sick of I had to chat GPT a good word, like PG-rated air word for this, but I'm sick of like the idolization. I think that it goes down to like the refs. I mean, it probably won't, but I don't know. I just don't want the Chiefs to win. I drew the Bills logo, and if you can't tell what it is, that's because I don't know who's gonna win. Pretty good.
That's actually pretty solid. Like,
Looks like.
It's not that bad.
it's missing red.
No, 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 I drew-
I didn't have
My
one.
Notre Dame was sick.
Now you're not.
But I also
Notre Dame
think
was
that
fire.
it's the Bills' best season since 1993. So I also think that the Chiefs aren't going to finish this season undefeated. And if they were going to lose a game, this is the game that they're going to lose.
Here's the deal about this. First off, there's a narrative that the Chiefs win their games because of the zebras. There was a text or a quote taken out of context that Mahomes is apparently asking referees to let him know when defenders are nearby. Yeah, that's not the case. He's trying to figure out if his linemen are offsides. When it comes to the Chiefs, you hate them because they win. Everybody hated the Tom Brady Patriots because all they did was win. And when you look at a 9-0 Chiefs team and everybody out there is picking the Bills to win this game because it just seems too easy for it to be the game that the Chiefs lose, all hope was lost last week and the Chiefs found a way. All hope seems to be lost this week because they finally met their match, right? Mahomes, Allen, who's it going to be? It's in Bills Mafia. The Bills Mafia is going to be out there wild like you've never seen before. And it is the regular season, and the Bills do have the Chiefs' number, but the Chiefs find a way to win. They do it again. And if this were a postseason game, I would bet a lot of money that the Chiefs are winning this game. Because sure, Mahomes can lose this game all he wants in the regular season. He doesn't lose when it counts, and that's why everybody hates him.
Well, let's reiterate here. Is it a regular season game or a playoff game?
It's regular season.
It's a regular
Doesn't
season
matter.
game. It's a regular season game, but the problem is everybody is way too confident that the Bills are going to win this game.
Vegas
way
is
too
gonna
confident.
love this game.
Vegas is loving this.
Oh no,
Vegas is licking their
will
chops.
love this game. And if I bet on this game, I hope
Vegas is
loves
making
my
a
money
lot of money
because
this weekend.
I have the Bills winning this game. I do think if there is one game that the Chiefs lose, it's going to be at Orchard Park to their arch nemesis of Josh Allen. I think you got to appreciate this Chiefs team, though. They win close games. Only 2 games of their 9-0 win streak have been over a touchdown or more. I think you got to achieve greatness there. I think you have to credit Andy Reid for that, Steve Spagnuolo for getting those late game stops. And you have to credit Mahomes behind the end of it, the mastermind of it all. This guy's could win his next MVP as long as Lamar Jackson doesn't fall off a cliff. I know that we'll talk about the MVP.
You're not on my good side right now, dude.
I'm sorry?
You say Lamar's going to lose his MVP, and then you go on and pick the Steelers over the Ravens, dude. You are walking on thin ice. You are.
Well, I'll tell you right now. Next week we'll be bringing up the Heisman candidates, the MVPs, because it is championship season. We're going to have a better outlook of how these whole football seasons are going to look. And then we'll get a little bit into college basketball, the NBA and whatnot. I don't know if you guys are fans of the NHL. We'll talk about that too. But that is going to do it for this episode of The Extra Point. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Special thanks to everybody in there in that production room for doing some awesome stuff. As always, thank you to my panelists. Love what you guys had to say today. I'm excited to get back next week. But for now, just like, comment, and subscribe to Tigervision. I'm Griffin Barfield. I'll see you guys next week.